Hey guys, it's Paul from The Answer here, and you're watching Loud TV. Yeah, I think so. We kind of, we've done 6 albums, and we've kind of been non-stop since, I guess we formed in 1999, so it was 18 years on the trot without a real break. And I think it was, for a number of reasons, it was getting that way that it looked we needed to take a break. I think creatively we were starting to feel a little bit burnt out, and we weren't sure what we would do next or what we could do different. And it just it seemed like a good time to take the break. At the time, I just had my first child as well, just before the last tour started. I moved to France, so it was it was good to have some time away from the band, and experience a new culture, a new country, become a father for the first time. And I think with the band, we didn't say it was we were finished, but at the same time it didn't look like we were coming back anytime soon. And it was just I think kind of 2 years into our break. At one point in 2019, I had a call from the manager, and there was an offer of another record deal, and he asked if we would be interested. And we got together and decided we would like to keep going and make another album, which we started. It took a while, I think. We started back in 2019 writing for it, but with the COVID enforced lockdowns, it got put back a few years. And but eventually we got into the studio in April of last year, and now we have the new album Sundowners ready to come out in March, which we're very excited about. It was hopeful, and I think I felt we had unfinished business when we stopped, and that we certainly had at least one more album, I think more than that. And it looked like maybe we'd not get a chance to do that. So when it came very out of the blue, I didn't think it would would happen that quick. 'Cause when we stopped, it felt like it would be forever. We'd not get back together. And then the offer to do the album when Golden Robot offered us a contract was real shot out of the blue. We got together, got reconvened in Ireland, and it seemed all 4 of us wanted to do it again, and we started writing. And yeah, I mean the early sessions were difficult. When you've done something for so long, and you get a little bit older and you stop, it takes a lot more to get going again, and it's the same with music. So it took us a little bit to get back in the swing of things, and it's also very difficult when you've no songs. We started with 0, just a couple of riffs, and how do you get from nothing to an album? Never mind an album of good songs or an album of songs you're confident about and you could take on the road and tour for a year or 2. So that was quite daunting, and but we stuck at it, and I think once we got first sort of 3 or 4 songs, we started to feel a bit of momentum come back. The chemistry was back, and I think we all felt a little bit more liberated in writing together, and like everyone's ideas were welcome. No idea was a bad idea, and yeah, it was really good fun to make music again. And I think we kind of, maybe the second session we did just before the first lockdown, we wrote Cold Heart, which is I think the first song we thought, that's a song that could be on an album or a single, or that we'd be confident to send to a record company and they would be into it, and they were. And then, you know, COVID came and there was a lockdown, and we kind of thought maybe we're not going to do this album now. Maybe there's going to be no more gigs, or we were all going to die. I don't know. It was a very uncertain time. And certainly it seemed like, you know, there'd be no money to make albums unless you're, you know, a major artist. So it kind of put a bit of a spanner in the works. But we kept writing, and we just did it. You know, I was living in France. The guys were, one guy in England and the other two guys in Ireland, and we just meet up once a week on Zoom, exchange ideas, work on them individually, check in again the next week. And then once airports opened again that summer of 2020, we went back to Ireland, got together in the studio for a week and just demoed all the ideas we had. And then there was another lockdown, so we continued writing over Zoom, got another sort of week in the summer of 2021, demoed more tracks, picked a producer, Dan Weller, and just went and did the album in April 22. So, I mean, at the start it was very hopeful. I was very thankful to have the opportunity again, but when the lockdowns happened, it felt like the opportunity was lost and that we wouldn't get to make this album. And if you said to me, you know, you're going to have to make your comeback album, which has got to be, you know, one of your best albums, your best album, and you're going to do it meeting once a week over Zoom, it's not possible. You can't, you know, one of the most important albums you're going to make, and we have to write it that way. Whereas we're used to being in the room together, and we thrive off that interaction, that energy, and then we take the ideas away and refine them, and that inspires other songs that you know then you'll come back and play them with the other guys. But this time we had to, you know, do it without that interaction, which it led to a different maybe style of song. I think some of the arrangements became much more focused more quickly. And the time we did have together to record, we were much more focused and got straight down to business. There was no messing around. So it's, you know, I think that kind of helped in a way. And the limitations kind of brought some unexpected creativity as well. So ultimately it was, you know, it seemed like it was a doomed experience, but it was ultimately a good experience. And you know, we were very happy to get back in the studio in April and get the record done finally after kind of a 2-year wait. I think another thing we noticed, we went into the studio and with maybe 16, 17 songs, but we're only going to record 11 or 12, I think. So there was 5 or 6 we weren't sure what exactly was going to be the song or you know, the collection. So we would just sit down after each day of recording. We would sort of have a clear idea of what direction the album was going, and that helped us pick those other songs. And you know, some of them were a little bit unexpected. If you heard them in isolation on their own, say a song like "Get On Back," you maybe think maybe that won't work on the album. And there were maybe some songs that didn't make it that were almost kind of single-esque, but didn't fit the vibe of the album and the sound, so we decided to leave them off. Whereas I think on previous records we just put what we thought were the best songs, the strongest songs, regardless of the style or how they, you know, fitted together as a cohesive unit. Whereas this one, it was kind of, you know, 10, 11 songs, and maybe only 1 or 2 departures from the, you know, the core sound or the core themes. I think it was the first time we all, you know, all agreed on that, and all could hear that works and that makes the album sound better. So yeah, it was refreshing to do that. And it was just every day you would play, you know, each new song that was tracked, we would listen back at the end of the day, and it would kind of give us the signposts of where to go with what song needs to follow it. And you know, that was different for us. One of the things Dan brought to the production, he produced and mixed it, so he kind of had a lot of control over that. And yeah, one of the first meetings we had with him, you know, he was talking about what sort of sounds he could hear us doing, and what he heard from the previous records that he thought had worked and what was lacking. And that was one of the things, was he wanted to have a lot of low end, but kind of, I guess it is subsonic, but he was saying more like low mids, kind of that sort of warmth of the low mids. He wanted to feature that more, and you know, have the guitar be more sparse and less wall of sound. There were still moments where that worked, but that was kind of the exception, I think, rather than the rule with this album. So yeah, that was something Dan brought, and yeah, I think it was one of those things. Like, I think this, usually I would always play the main sound of the answer, guitar wise, was a Les Paul and a Marshall, and this one I just went in the first day and I've had a Strat Telecaster and Les Paul's with me. I plugged in the Strat, just the Fender Princeton amp, a bit of fuzz on it, and we were just jamming, and he thought that's a good tone to start with. And I think having that sort of more single coil Fender sound maybe left more space for the low end, for the bass to kind of fill up, whereas, you know, the Les Paul can be quite dominant in that frequency spectrum, and maybe hitting the bass and the kick can sometimes fight it a little bit. But I think maybe that's, you know, just a subtle thing like that kind of influenced that. But yeah, he wanted to make the foundation of the album have a lot of low end, and you know, have everything else sit on top of that. So that was Dan's influence. We did a couple of days at the end. We got some backing singers in. Just that the studio engineer and manager Pete, there's 3 girls he always gets in, you know, to do sessions, and they came in and just you know, put some ideas down on every track. And O'Cherry had one of the girls did some ad libs on that I think you know, added something, a little extra bit of character to it that I think stands out. And I guess Mickey did a lot of backing vocals on the album as well. Well, all of us too. I think some of his are featured on O'Cherry also. So there's yeah, there's a lot of little things like that, and the keyboards as well. We had a guy come in one day and he just tried a lot of things on every song. I think the Hammond really seemed to work, and the Wurlitzer too. Actually, there's one of the tracks, No Salvation. When it came to track that, it was originally a song that was much faster, and I think just that morning we were listening to some old soul records, some Alabama Shakes, and just being influenced by that, I went in with James and plugged, it was the Telecaster and this Fender Princeton amp with the reverb on it, and we started playing it at about half the tempo, and you know, just a slightly different groove. And the guy that owns the studio, Pete, he came in and just started jamming on the Hammond, and then Mickey came in and he started playing, and unbeknownst to us, Dan was recording it, and he said, I think we should do this track at this tempo with this sort of groove. And we just kind of felt it out that way, and tracked it live with Pete in the room playing the Hammond too, so it was all bleeding into each other. And you know, I think little things like that were, you know, really lent the vibe to the album, which we probably wouldn't have done something like that before. It would have been all very pre-planned, and there would have been no, you know, there wouldn't have been Hammond organ and having it all bleed into the drum mics and stuff, and, you know, ruining our sacred drum takes. It was all that was, the spontaneity was there, and you know, we embraced it. Yeah, I think so. I think you know, it's probably the celebration of us getting back together, thinking that we wouldn't make another record, and after COVID, finally getting to make a record, I think all of that kind of, there's a lot of subconscious joy that came out in the playing and the lyrics. And I think if you talk to Cormac about the lyrics, he says a lot of them were, there are some lyrics that he did he had from the very first sessions we did before COVID, that he was able to craft over, almost 2-3 years. And then there's some things he just, he wrote the verse before he did the vocal take for it. And, a lot of songs were caught between those two approaches. So it's, I don't know, it was just all very natural, not too premeditated. I think that's just how we were all feeling. I remember during the tracking, our manager came in to see how it was going and, talk about what sort of artwork and, how we envisaged the album being presented. And he suggested, we've never had an album cover with you guys on the front. I think this, I guess on Rise, we're on that, but it's from behind. But, maybe it's time to, for the comeback, we'll put you up, front and center. So we did that, and I don't know if people will pick up on, we used a certain album cover might have influenced how we approached that. And as well, I think that's another thing we were thinking about, what would be the running order, and what would be the first song on the album. And probably originally I was thinking things like maybe Cold Heart or Blood Brother, those kind of songs. But then I think Mickey and Cormac and our manager were suggesting when I put Sundowners on. And I was thinking, well, it's too long, it's too much of an experience, I think, to engage listeners straight away. And but they were saying, that's what we need to do. Let's do the opposite of what we've done before, of making, putting the single on first, or that sort of 3-minute sort of hit to hook people in. Let's just put it all out there. So there's a lot of things like that, like the cover, like starting with that track, that were things we wouldn't have done before, but we embraced this time. I think so. It ties in with everything we were trying to do with the album, with our our Irish heritage and our return, and through the the history of the band, we've always had some very memorable St. Patrick's Day all over the world. I remember being in Austin, Texas, spending St. Patrick's Day there during South by Southwest Festival. Twice actually, we've done that. I've been in Prague when on tour with AC/DC when Ireland won the Six Nations. Was it 2009 or yeah? I've been in LA with David Coverdale on St. Patrick's Day and Sunset Marquee, drinking Guinness and Jameson. So it's had many great days in the history of the band, and it seemed a nice way to relaunch the album and the tour. We've done a few good support gigs through the years. Yeah, I mean, the AC/DC tour was pretty special. Getting to do the Black Eyes tour over a year on the road with those guys was a dream come true. Again, I grew up listening to them as a kid, massive fan. Never saw them live until the first show in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, when I'd just come off stage. So we just opened for them, got to come off stage, grab a beer, go side stage and watch the show for the first time. So that was pretty special. And that whole tour, many memories. Really nice to meet the guys and hang out with them every day. And I think Whitesnake were our band. How many times now? We toured with them on Rise, the first album. Revival, we did some touring with them. Raise a Little Hell, we toured in America with them 2015. Did it Europe 2016. And I think David Coverdale's been a really good friend to the band through the years, and it's someone we really enjoy hanging out with, and getting to see him play too. So we've been very lucky in that aspect of our career. Album comes out on St Patrick's Day, March 17th. We're going to kick off a UK tour on the 16th in Blackpool. It's going to go through March and early April, through Europe, Germany, France, Holland, Belgium, and that'll take us through the first sort of phase of the Sundowners touring. Then festivals, lots of European festivals, UK festivals throughout the summer. And then we'll see where we get to in September. Hopefully, I think with the label, Golden Robot being an Australian label, we'll go down under for some touring, maybe go from Australia to Japan, and maybe the States after that. So we'll see. Hopefully come back and do a bigger headlining tour again in the winter as well. So, but we'll just get the album out, get to the end of the summer, and see.